Welcome to the Ward 5 NAB meeting. We'll go ahead and get started.
Give me one more minute, Mr. Chair, so we're exactly on the dot.
Oh, I'm looking at that clock. It looks like it's right on it.
No, like 60 seconds.
Okay. Stand by.
I know, so prompt. All right, Mr. Chair, it is 5:30 on October 10th, and we are ready to begin the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting.
Okay, can we call the meeting to order and have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Carol Crane.
Here.
Thank you. Gary Cecil.
Here.
Thank you. Bryce Chisholm.
Here.
Thank you. Jeff Harvey.
Here.
Thank you. And then Council Liaison, Councilmember Taylor is present. Staff Liaison, Abigail Mayorga is present. And then Staff Liaison as well, Jenna Moyer is present. Mr. Chair, you have a quorum of the Ward 5 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting.
Okay, thank you. And let's move to the public comment section.
Yes.
We have.
Yep, Mr. Chair, you do have public comment today. Members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering to the following link, which can be found on the reno.gov/meetings. It is also on your agenda. I will now read the following link. And it reads as https://us06 WEB.ZOOM.US //U.S./REGIST/T1W. It should be noted for those in attendance that comments are to be addressed to the board as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. The board may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. The timer is up here so you can see it for yourself. So we will start with in-person public comment and then we will move to virtual. I have Miss Lori Benning first to provide public comment. Hi, Lori, you can come up to the podium, but yeah.
Lori Benning.
It should be on.
Has a red light.
Perfect.
Lori Benning, and I had a comment about the safety on Washington Street between 11th and 12th Street. There is no sidewalk on either the west side or and the east side of a section in that, within that block. And there are many people who walk their dogs, and plus all of the events that happen at Rancho San Rafael Park and people who park there and walk there. You either have to walk in someone's yard, which would be 3 homes, 3 yards, or you have to walk in the street. And I just feel like it's a safety issue since I walk my dog there. And I feel like I'm impinging upon their property, but I also don't feel safe to walk within the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Michael Benning.
Hi, I'm Michael Benning, and I wanted to talk about Airbnbs, specifically in our local area. We live on Highland Pines Drive, and on our block, there are 3. Okay, some of them have very few cars all the time. Some of them have a lot of cars. But the issue is this is a residential neighborhood. It's zoned single family, SFR 6 or SFR 5 at the time they were built. And in the near our neighborhood, there are at least 6 Airbnbs within 2 blocks. So do we want it to be a residential area or do we want it to be commercial or, high density? And it's not zoned high density, it's zoned single family. So that's my concern. So if something's going to be brought up about it at the council or something, I talked to Kathleen Taylor, not you, but just pointing to the name, when she came by and said hi, and she said it was not on the council agenda. So I'm here.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you just state that what is the street names again?
Highland Pines Drive.
Highland?
Highland Pines Drive.
Okay.
There are 3. I can give you the addresses if you'd
No,
like.
that's okay. I just
Then
wanted to
there-
note the general area.
Okay, then there are 2 on Putnam Drive.
Putnam Drive. Okay.
Then there's one on the corner of Washington and College. So,
Thank you.
okay, you're very welcome. Any other questions? No? Okay,
I just know that some other cities have like put bans on them or whatnot, so
yes,
but I've never heard of any talk about that happening around here yet.
that's why we're bringing it up,
Yeah.
because it's getting out of hand, for my opinion, for our neighborhood especially. So
Are you having loud noise after hours, a lot of volume?
noise,
traffic?
garbage, yeah. Yeah, people drinking it's just, granted, we live near the college. We're about half a mile from the college. So there are some rentals as well, long-term rentals. They have their own problems, but this is another problem. So anyway, just trying to bring it to the forefront. So
Thank
anything
you
else?
very much.
Appreciate it.
You're very
Thanks.
welcome.
Next, we have Chester Burton.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Chairperson and members of the advisory board. For the record, my name is Chester Burton. I reside at 1458 Highland Pines Drive in Reno, and I also want to address the advisory board this evening about the proliferation of short-term rentals in our community. My wife and I built our house in 2007 in Highland Pines near Rancho Park, and we're very involved in both the city and our community doing volunteer work with nonprofits like the Reno Bike Project. And we're very interested in seeing the city succeed. And we're real worried about what we're seeing with this proliferation of short-term rentals such as Airbnb and VRBO, and the lack of regulation and or enforcement on these rentals in the city of Reno. These rentals are impacting our community in a negative manner as they're mainly owned by absentee owners, and the people staying in the house are not invested in the neighborhood, and instead of contributing to making Reno a better community to live, work, and raise a family, they're impacting sanitation, parking, and a variety of other issues such as affordable housing, which we all hear about all the time. In a 4-block radius, and this is expounding on what Mike said, of our house, there are over a dozen Airbnb listings in a 4-block radius. 2 of those listings advertised on Airbnb, one says there has a capacity of 12 guests, and the other says it has a capacity of 15 guests. I have photos of anyone's interest of 9 cars parked at one of the listings on a recent weekend. 9 cars. No regulation. There's overflowing trash at 12 guests partying over a weekend, create a lot of waste, which a single residential trash can is not designed to handle. One of the large guest homes is next door to a house with 2 young children, and they have to contend with people partying late into the evening. I ask you, just like Mike did, how is this compatible with the residential community? These properties are commercial businesses. When there's 15 people, that's a business. That's not a short-term rental. And they directly compete with our hotel and resort industry, which employ thousands of people in this city. Recently, Nevada passed a revised statute that begins to regulate short-term rentals, but the bill AB 363 only applies to Clark County and not Washoe or Reno. Closer area, Salt Lake Tahoe recently passed a referendum, Measure T, which was passed because the residents there were fed up with the proliferation of short-term rentals and voted to completely eliminate them through a referendum. New York City just passed a very restrictive ordinance that went into effect September in response to many issues posed by these rentals. New York has a population of over 19 million and has 10,000 rentals. Reno has a population of 280,000 and we have over 1,000. Thus, the density in Reno is over 6 times what it is in New York City, and we have no regulation. So I'm just asking the advisory committee to think about in the future agenda, have options to regulate these rentals to bring to the city council that allows our neighborhoods to retain their identity, alleviate the parking and other issues that residents have in the future, and contribute to the success of our city. Thank you very much.
I just want to say last month we had a group in here that was from Putnam and they're trying to put in what was it, the parking passes, so it's residential parking zone or whatnot. So but I believe that was the east section of your neighborhood. Yeah, and so I don't know if that's something you guys want to be involved with as well. Maybe that would help with that. If they only had 2 parking passes to park on the street or something, I don't know if that would help. Just and I know that they were all writing into council for city council tomorrow. So you might want to get in on that. Yeah. I don't know, we'd have to get the city.
Hi, guys, we can connect with you. I will give you guys my card and we'll connect with the right appropriate parties. Thank you. Awesome. And then that concludes public comment at this time. I believe Mr. Redding wants to do it for B11. I want to clarify before I go on. Yes, okay, perfect. So we'll hold till then. So that concludes public comment. If there is anyone via Zoom who would like to give public comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's move on to A3 of the agenda, the approval of the agenda.
I can make a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting, October 10th, 2023.
Rice, and I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approve the agenda and we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Rice, I'll go ahead and approve, make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. Gary Cecil.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's
Can I
unanimous.
just say that was an amazing set of minutes. The one for all the information about the parks and recreation was superb. So all credit to whomever did that.
Marianne Potts, who's on right now.
Mary Ann, thank you very much. Great stuff.
Okay, we'll move on to A5, council liaison report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and NAB members. I don't have a ton for you tonight, but 2 quick things. If you haven't seen, I know Mr. Cecil is very involved. We are doing the business licensing update and we have several meetings at all times. They're all going to be at Evelyn Mount Community Center. So you can go on our website and find out when those are if you're interested in that. And then on tomorrow's agenda, we do have the Putnam residency on that. And then we have some micromobility information for the downtown networks. And I think Abby will talk a little bit about a cleanup
Yes.
upcoming. And I'll have any questions.
Any questions?
Just one comment. Such bad news nowadays. I was thrilled to see a couple of donations that you've got on the agenda for tomorrow for Options Veterinary Care, nonprofit vet services, and TMC Foundation for Diversity in Education, International Education Week. We sure need some good news nowadays. So I love those 2 donations. They're great. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. And we'll move to A6, the staff liaison report.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Board, I do have a couple of updates. So I wanted to touch on two of the ones that are happening. As Councilwoman Taylor stated, we are beginning the Reno Muni Code business licensing updates. So I wanted to share that. So this is kind of discussing what that is for those who aren't aware, but they are opening Title V and are looking for Title IV and Title V and are looking for community input to better rewrite the code. So the sessions did begin on Monday, but they go on all throughout the rest of October. So you can find that here on reno.gov/components, and I can provide the link for you as well. But some of the ones that they go into is mobile vending, alcoholic beverages. So this will be an interactive session at Evelyn Mount where the community and residents can provide input on what they think should be in the code. And you can also submit online here. So you don't necessarily have to go to the meeting in person. But this would be a good way to kind of get into that and see the different issues that they're tackling. So that is my first one. I'm gonna stop sharing. Any questions on this?
Abby, may I just make a comment?
Of course.
I went to one of the meetings today and it's really fun. There's not a 3-minute time clock, which for me
Yes.
is like gold dust.
Yes.
But seriously, now there was some very good discussion. You hear points of view from a lot of different people with business licenses here, and that's always good for me to hear, I think, from a resident standpoint. The other thing I would say is it's been 25 years since there's been a major overhaul. So speak now or
Wait,
I'll
25
probably
years.
be too old
Yeah.
to even have a comment next time. But it's good. It's really good. It's a good process. I'm so happy with it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Perfect. A second one I wanted to update you guys on. So obviously we have concluded the redistricting process, but there's a lot of questions left of how does that affect me? Where does that leave me? What does that look like? So I wanted to go over that. Now that the final option E has been approved and sent to the registrar for voting, that map will take an effect January 2024 for all purposes to carry out the 2024 election. So what that means is that map is strictly for the registrar use and is the map that will be used for the 2024 election. Your current representative does not change until that sixth member is elected through the election. So we are really happy that we got to this point. Our redistricting team wanted to thank everyone who participated in this feedback with their ideas using the redistrictor tool. It's so important to get that community feedback in order to make this happen. So we're not just kind of drawing blankly. But I did want to go over this really cool tool that will assist residents in identifying where they reside now and what ward they're currently in. So it'll be a comparison. So you'll see here the current map that is right now, and then the map that will be in effect in 2024. So you could go in here and you can put in your address. Even if you don't know what ward you're in now, which, you know, some people don't and they need assistance, you can put it in here and you'll be able to identify that. But say you're trying to figure out what ward you'll be in by 2024, you'll put in your address. So I'll just put in City Hall. First Street, Reno, Nevada. It worked when I tried it. Did it? Oh no. It's Lund. I tested this out, guys. Oh, there we go. Use current location. Let's do that. Allow. We love technology. So it'll give you the difference, right? So you can see here that originally we were in 5, but now we're in this blue area. Well, it thinks we're Wingfield, so it thinks we're still in the same one. If it's City Hall, it would show the difference. But if you zoom out, you can see the differences. So this was 5 and this is 1, but now this is all 1. So you can kind of zoom out on the colors if that is helpful. But yeah. So that will let you know where you're currently at. And if you do have questions, feel free to contact me and I can obviously do this for you and I can identify that. But again, this won't take effect until 2024. Perfect. Any questions on this?
Just a quick question on the lines of like our ward now. What is the street that like goes north on there?
Over here?
No, where the purple starts and the blue?
This side or this side?
On the right side of the
Okay.
new map. What street is that that goes up right there?
Washington.
That's Washington. Okay.
Yes. That's the cutoff. You can see all the way through. Yep. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, next. Perfect. So we have our community cleanup coming up for the fall. And I wanted to share the website. So our community cleanup for Ward 5 is set to occur on October 21st, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's going to be at the UNR North Green Lot, which is super exciting because there'll be much more space to maneuver. This is one of our most attended events, and it's a great time for you to be able to get rid of some stuff. So the website kind of goes into the items that are accepted and not accepted. Yeah, she'll update that. But it is the green lot for your guys, North Green Lot for your guys' records. Yeah. Oh, yes. And McQueen is this weekend as well. So that is actually in Ward 5 as well. So we have one coming up this Saturday. And then Councilwoman Taylor's is the 21st, and that will be the last one of the season. So these are your last two chances to kind of get rid of those old items. It goes into items accepted, items not accepted. If you're looking to volunteer or have people who need volunteer hours, we're always taking volunteers as well. And if you have any questions, please contact our colleague, Sierra Lindsay. But we hope to see you there. Perfect. Any questions on this? Perfect. And there's e-waste, hazardous waste, all that type of stuff. All right, last two things I wanted to go over. As Councilwoman Taylor mentioned, Putnam Drive did come to you guys at the last Ward 5 meeting to kind of go over the issues that they were facing. They were looking to apply for residential parking area for their block. That will be going to council tomorrow. And they have noted for the record that you guys were in support of their ask. So that is noted as well. So we will see, it is up to council tomorrow to pass that through. So just wanted to give an update on that. And then additionally, yes, go ahead.
Did that just skip planning commission then? It hasn't been there.
So it doesn't need to go to planning commission.
I didn't
because-
think so. I just
yeah.
wanted to check. Okay,
So, yeah.
thanks.
So then the last update I have is the next Ward 5 NAB is scheduled for November 14th, 5:30 p.m. at Reno City Hall, and it is virtual and in person. Perfect. And that is it for me.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the business items, B1 development projects.
Yes, and our presenter is actually going to be on Zoom. So Karen, I'm gonna promote you to a panelist, and that will give you, it'll allow you to speak, and I'll pull up the presentation in a second. All right, Karen, do you want to test out your mic for me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
Give me
It's
1
been,
second.
I am here. It's been such a long time since we've done these
Oh,
via Zoom, and I apologize for that. I have a bit of a bug, so I thought I would keep my germs away from you.
perfect. And then can you see the screen, Karen?
Yes.
Awesome. And then, Mr. Chair, we did have one public commenter for this item, Mr. Chance Redding. Yes.
Go ahead. Okay. Hello. First of all, thank you for being here. My name is Chance Reading. I live at 435 and 425 South Fordyce Road. It is, sorry, can we see this?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
It's a two homes, of 2 of 5 lots that are in between the proposed T intersection and the on-ramp to the highway. I have a couple things that I'd like to just, we're not here to fight about the secondary access. I think we're kind of trying to get the design correct at this point. One of the issues that I have that I really wanted to bring attention to is this proposed T intersection is going to provide access for these residents. It's going to provide them to the highway into Verdi proper, and ultimately going to be one of the main exits for this property. My property, I own these 2 properties here. You can see the proposed T intersection. This is a blind corner right now. It's kind of this long S curve as it currently exists. We currently have less than 500 trips a day on this road. I know the project total, I think they're saying 13,500. So and a lot of that will be pushed towards the main entrance that is being built, but I think they're projecting somewhere between 25% or so of the traffic to ultimately be on the secondary access. And maybe even more, depending on where people are going. This will be the best way to get to Verdi proper, as things are currently laid out. My main concern, honestly, is for my family and friends and guests at our property. When you pull out currently, you can see less than 100 feet. So with people that know this road, they typically do go the speed limit. You can also see people crossing the railroad tracks, so you can kind of get an idea of who's coming and allow the corner to turn or to clear. With this, the current way that it's being developed, we won't be able to see any of this traffic come down. So we'll really have no idea what we're turning out of and turning into. And all I'm really suggesting, and I think is appropriate, the city's requiring this, the developer's project is impacting existing residents. I think it would be really appropriate to widen this road and continue proper road size with pedestrian access all the way to the highway. And that's really what I would just like to suggest. This is, I know this is actually a hydro map, but I think it does a good job of just showing this blind corner here. And then this is my driveway right here. This is the on-ramp to the highway. And, I think that with this construction and the way they're doing things, kind of what I'm asking is just that this is continued on to the on-ramp. I think for the project in total, I had some concerns about snow. Obviously, snow removal in the winter is going to be an issue. The pedestrian paths are going to be blocked. I think there's no bike path, which I think is disappointing because South Verdi Road is part of the Tahoe Hike and Bike Trail. I appreciate there not being any streetlights actually, because that's appropriate for the area. I do think that some low pedestrian lighting would be appropriate because it is completely black out there. We do have wildlife, and I think that was something that's not really being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now hear from Karen. So I'm going to pull up her presentation. Give me 1 second. All right, go ahead, Karen, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. And good evening, NAM members. Again, my name is Karen Downs. I'm with Manhard Consulting, and I'm here representing the applicant on this secondary access for Santerre Quilisi properties. All right, next slide. Here is our project location. Again, it's south of I-80 and South Verdi Road. We will go over a little bit of the project history, but what I wanted to point out here is there's this road goes through a portion of 4 parcels. Our most recent approval had 3 parcels, and so this kind of triangle shaped parcel here is what is new and why we're here before you again. Next slide. This just shows our the existing land use and zoning that the road would go through. Next slide. And then what we're here for tonight is a major site plan review. It was previously a special use permit, but it's modifying the existing approval. So there's a different configuration that we'll talk about. And so the reason it requires a site plan review is for its cuts greater than 20 feet, fills greater than 10, and grading in the open space zoning. Again, we have an existing approval for a special use permit, as well as the tentative map approval of the secondary access. Next slide. So to go through the background on our approvals, the tentative map was approved in 2021. It had we'll see an exhibit in just a minute, but a secondary access length that was longer, and it went continued further south along this side. Because of there was a desire for preferred alignment and limiting impact to adjacent residences, we did come forward with the special use permit that was approved in October of 2021. So this was a shorter alignment. The length was 1,317 feet. And then also because of that reduced length, there was corresponding reduced grading on the site. And one of the conditions of that approved special use permit was to coordinate with Steamboat Ditch. The Steamboat Ditch Company. And so that's how we're here tonight. It's the proposed major site plan review, and it's for these design modifications to accommodate that preferred Steamboat Ditch Company alignment. So these modifications are what we talk about. The applicant did acquire that triangle shaped parcel that will allow for grading on that parcel, as well as the Steamboat Ditch alignment. Okay, next slide. And then this is an exhibit of the different secondary access approvals. So the green line is the original approval that was approved with the tentative map. The red is the current, or is the special use permit that's currently approved, that alignment. And the yellow is the proposed alignment that we're here to talk about tonight. So what the difference is with this, again, it has that triangle shaped parcel that will allow for grading in that parcel, and the Steamboat Ditch alignment to go through that parcel. It's going to, with this proposed alignment, it reduces the amount of walls because we have that extra room for grading. So it's going to reduce the amount of walls along the west side of the road. It's going to reduce the maximum overall wall height from a 2-tier retaining wall of 23.5 feet to 13 feet, and that single retaining wall. It reduces the linear footage of walls from 2,686 feet to 1,343 feet. It does reduce the maximum grade of the road. It's able to maintain, it's still steep, but it's able to maintain 10%. And then this proposed maintains that shorter alignment of the existing SUP approval. I should have pointed out earlier on this picture, this yellow dash over here are the grading limits with this road, with this proposed alignment. All right, next slide. And then this is the cuts and fills display. So again, it's here for this major site plan review for cuts over 20 and fills over 10. So you can see this triangle shaped parcel is what has not been before. It was not part of that previous SUP approval, but it has this triangle shaped parcel where there's grading and the revised Steamboat Ditch alignment. And that area of max cut there is the 22.3 feet. The other cuts and fills were reviewed with the previous SUP approval. Next slide. So this is an example of just what the walls could look like. It's precast decorative retaining walls with a rockwork look. It'll be decided with final design what the actual rock will look like, and we anticipate working with staff to ensure it's a natural looking rockwork look. Next slide. All right, and with this application, we provided some photo simulations of the site. One is looking south from kind of the new T intersection at South Verde Road. And the other one is from this first one that we're looking at is here looking south from Crystal Park Road and Gavica Lane right at the intersection. So you can see with the grading,
Sorry.
That's good. Next one is looking from I-80, looking east from I-80 over to Quilisi Road. You can see the road that comes along through here. And that is all I have for you tonight. I just wanted to reiterate again that this is for the secondary access that's already been approved. The traffic impacts have been approved with the project approval. What we're looking at tonight is just this alignment for the existing or for the secondary access as approved, which is a slightly different alignment. Thank you. And of course, I'm here for any questions. I
have a question for you. Excuse me, Jeff Hardy for the record. I reviewed some of this information, confirmed it was 2021 when this was approved. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And prior to that, the traffic assessment or analysis was done in 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, the date of the traffic study was December 2019, and that's what was used in the application for that tentative map approval.
So have we given any thought or have we revisited the notion of traffic now that we're in 2023? I know I took a look at this area, excuse me, last Sunday, and I noticed that there's commercial development down there. And I looked at the roadway, I saw people walking on the roadway, which is a narrow roadway, excuse me, and there's no sidewalks, there's no bike path. It just seems to me that the volume of traffic that, although it's a secondary access road, the volume of traffic that will be increased for that area, it seems to me that perhaps they should have a wider road there, perhaps sidewalks, maybe a bike path. Just my thought. Has any thought been given to revisit that, or are you satisfied with the traffic analysis that's been done and you're ready to move forward?
Yes, I think we're satisfied with the traffic analysis that was done because that was part of that tentative map approval. So it was, just determined at that time that that's what was needed. And then the secondary access was part of that approval. So now it's kind of implementing that tentative map approval and part of the traffic study at that time.
Thank you. Other questions?
Traffic, I will add to the traffic study did have some conditions in it for when development occurs for different for the improvements and different triggers in that.
Is that on an annual basis or is that stipulated in that?
There's conditions in the traffic study. I don't know them off the top of my head, but conditions for like signal warrant analysis, things like that, that were part of that tentative map approval.
Others? Works?
Good evening, Kieran. First of all, thank you for not turning up, so we don't catch anything. I appreciate that very much. Also, just to set my questions in some kind of context, I'm obviously not a structural engineer. I'm not on the planning commission, so I don't have full benefit of information from the Development Services Department. But there are a couple of memos that were in the pack with your application. I always look at those because sometimes they raise questions that I wouldn't have thought of. So just a bit of housekeeping. First of all, it seems like beside the Steamboat Ditch Company that you alluded to in your presentation, that there was some coordination to be done with them,
Right.
Presumably because it affects some kind of drainage. And has that, where does that stand right now?
Which part, the drainage or communication with Steamboat Ditch Company?
Well, in the memo from September 15th that was with the application package, it says that written documentation has been provided, which shows we are working with representatives from Steamboat Ditch Company. We
Yes.
require any necessary approvals through SCIC before the city of Reno issues a permit. So have you got those approvals?
So we've been, just how the process goes, their approval isn't going to come until later when there's a final design. But they've had, I think the final count was 8 meetings to review and go through the design. And they did provide a letter that we included with the application package. I'm not sure if you have that or not, but we did provide a letter that has just says they're working with us and they have an agreement on these designs.
Okay, so if council approves this eventually, and you haven't got this, that would hold up the actual permit for you. So you're hoping to get everything in short order.
For sure, they will need approval with the final design.
Okay, and again, this is just a bit of housekeeping. Also, you were looking to receive a construction maintenance agreement from Washoe County, which related to some kind of conversations with Union Pacific.
Yes.
Where does that stand?
So that is, sorry, I want to get you the correct information. I know they've met with both Washoe County and Union Pacific Railroad and have approvals. It's in the approval process to get the final documents. They've received approvals from Union Pacific, and they're just waiting on these final documents.
So
And when we
there's
get
a
that,
verbal
then it's-
agreement or something like that?
Yeah, it's a construction maintenance agreement, and then so they've agreed to approve it, but there's no document yet, and then that will be executed by Washoe County. So
Okay,
they have met, gone through everything, and have received approval, and it just takes time to get through that process. But they will need that also before going forward.
okay. And boy, you got a lot of players in this project, I tell you. NDOT, is there anything that's holding on the NDOT side?
Currently, there's nothing that would require an NDOT easement, but of course, if something changed in final design and there was, then we would have to get the NDOT easement as well.
Okay. Global stability analysis, is that part of your application package?
So that would also be with final design, and then that would be provided as well with final design.
And that will be ready by October 1st for planning commission?
No, that would be final design of the road, like construction of the road itself.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of other questions on other issues, but I'll yield the floor to my colleagues if they have any questions in the meantime.
Okay. Bryce?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think the wall looks good. I like that stonework. I like that you're reducing the maximum wall height and reducing the linear footage. That all sounds good, you know? I do have concerns about like the gentleman that spoke earlier about his public comment about his entrance to his two properties.
Mhm.
And I can just see, I mean, I didn't read this traffic study, but what is the expected traffic on that road?
So, in going through the traffic study, it was about 22% of trips expected on that road. So the total amount they had, let's see if I can find it real quick. I can't find, it was about 22% of the total trip. So I know one of the questions was this being a secondary access versus primary access. Part of that is the number of trips proposed on this, and then also the like the 2-lane and the smaller right of way versus 4-lane for the primary access.
Yeah, and the primary access is the Boomtown entrance, which is
Correct.
those two roundabouts that they're putting in over there.
Yes. I think the amount was about 3,000 trips, and it was about 22%.
I mean, but this also kind of reminds me of like the Somerset where they built the main exit was by like Robb Drive, and then they built the secondary access, which was out at Verdi. So you don't have the total traffic that's coming out of there?
Let me.
I just see all the people that live in the back of your community that you're building are gonna race down that hill, and then they're racing towards the jump on the freeway right there. And that's just, you're not going slow because you know that you're gonna be running. I'm about to get on the freeway, so I'm like hitting it and I'm going fast along there. And then I got this brand new road that's nice and wide, so I can go a little bit faster than what it's saying I can go. And then you've got this gentleman that's pulling out of his neighborhood or can't even pull out because there's so many cars that are coming back and forth. So I'm just wondering what the traffic is.
So the total, I found the exhibit here. It's tiny. So again, this was part of that tentative map approval. So the trips on that road look like to be 3,053, and that was about the 22% of the total 13,000 trips. And again, the traffic study included, those were the trips for the Santerre Quilisi project, but the traffic study included all of areas 2 and 3 of Mortensen Garson. So it did look at global or at the traffic impacts throughout there with all the approved development.
Do you know what the traffic is there right now?
I imagine it's not much.
Well, I think it looks nice and I'm glad you reduced the wall, but I'm definitely concerned about the traffic. But if it was already approved, so I don't know what, I'll just give you my thoughts on that, but thank you.
Yep.
Carol, did you have any questions? You good? Do we have any in the virtual audience with questions?
If you have any questions on Zoom, please raise your hand at this time. Seeing none, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well,
I have a couple more questions.
go ahead, Gary.
Sorry. Let's see where I want to start with. Is there somebody from the department's development services department here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Jeff Foster is here today with us.
Jeff, could I just ask you a question? Again, I'm very ignorant of these things, so there's been a lot in the documents I've looked at that talk about fills and grades. And what is that? Is that about drainage, or what are the regulations in the code meant to do in terms of maximums and things like that?
So it's basically, sorry, Jeff Foster, Associate Planner for the record. It's basically meant to establish a threshold for cuts and fills, cuts over 20 feet, fills over 10, that then allow us to look at drainage, retaining walls, design in terms of maximum heights, landscaping associated with those walls, things like that. There are some other standards depending on the type of development, if it's residential or other things, but in this case, we're just talking walls. So
there's nothing in this that is a variance to the current code?
Well, the major site plan review specifically addresses the cuts
That's why
and
you had
fills. So
the
that is
review.
the entitlement
Okay.
that would allow those thresholds to be exceeded.
Okay, and so your department was comfortable with those as presented?
So we're currently still evaluating it. It's here before the NAB tonight. It's intended to go to the Planning Commission on November 1st. And so we're in the process of evaluating it from a planning perspective, which is me, as well as an engineering perspective, which is our engineer, Frank Peralta. So he will be preparing his portion of the staff report that'll go into my report, and that'll be, of course, made available to the Planning Commission and the public.
Okay, so is there a trade-off between the height of walls and grading and cuts then?
I mean, aesthetically, certainly from a planning perspective, we would prefer lower walls, smaller walls. So yes, that's certainly something that is favorable with the current design.
Okay, so it's aesthetics and just making sure the drainage is
Yeah.
correct if you're going to allow those to kind of go up.
Yeah, I mean, from
Okay.
an engineering perspective, and keep in mind that I'm not an engineer, but
Me either.
right? Yeah, we're on the same page, right?
Right.
So, but from a engineering perspective, they would have to prove that the walls are structurally stable and whatnot, no matter how high they were, right?
Yes.
But of course, the higher they are, the more complex they are, and more expensive and everything else. So. Yeah, but from a planning perspective, the smaller walls certainly, and I would argue from an engineering perspective, everyone, and Karen might be able to speak to this as well, but the all told, the smaller walls, the lower height walls are certainly favorable.
Okay, and just one more question while I have you up here. But I've forgotten it, darn it. Oh, do you have one? You go ahead.
Can I go ahead and ask you about the traffic analysis, the survey that was done due to the fact that it is 4 years old and the fact that from that point forward, there's been some development out there, commercial development, and the fact that it seems to us there is a safety concern with respect to people walking on the road being extremely narrow, no bike path. Is there any way to revisit that before this is all moved forward so that we could possibly mitigate some of those safety concerns?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And clearly that message has been conveyed, tonight. It was something that I asked about in my staff applicant comments, was an updated traffic study. It was conveyed, much as Karen indicated tonight, that they were satisfied with the existing study. And one thing to keep in mind here is that had they gone forward 3 years ago, the traffic study would have been the same, right? So it's a matter of time shifting forward. But on the one hand, they could have done this 3 years ago and no one would have been able to, the same issues might have existed in terms of safety and whatnot, but we wouldn't have the same concerns because the study would have only been a year old, at that type of thing. So that is one thing to keep in mind. I will say that I will talk with, so I am the planner on this case, as I think I already conveyed. I happen to be the planner in it as well as being assigned to be here tonight. So I will certainly talk with our engineer, Frank Peralta, and see if there's something that we can look at in terms of maybe not refreshing the staff report, the traffic study per se, but looking at the issues that have been addressed in terms of the safety, pedestrian safety, bicycle path or bicycle lanes, those kinds of things, and see how that was vetted through the entire tentative map review process. Because as Karen pointed out, there are conditions of approval throughout the tentative map that also will need to be put into play as phases are developed. So it could be that some of those issues, I don't know, shooting from the hip here a little bit, but it could be that some of those issues will be put to bed throughout the development process. I don't know that for sure, and I'm happy to move forward and vet that further during the current review of this. And it could be that we could condition things. So it could be that, we could condition the bike path or the low level lighting as the gentleman asked for, something along those lines. So that's certainly something that staff will entertain.
I think, in my view, at a minimum, for the safety of the residents that are pulling on to South Verde Road and that area, if we could make sure that we somehow either straighten that road out to a certain extent or at least revisit it, because I actually drove out there myself. And as you pull from the resident's property and you look to the left, it is an absolute blind curve. And I watched traffic go by, even their local residents, they were going at a very slow pace. And yet they had to be right on top of you before you could see them. So I can just imagine those that are using that secondary access for the quick on-ramp to 80, they're going to fly down that road. And you're really going to have to be a thrill seeker to pull out in front of those cars. So that would be my view, to at least revisit it and take a look at it.
And maybe there's some kind of traffic calming, speed
Mitigation.
bumps or whatever, something that could get them to slow down as they're coming down the hill there. So yeah, it was certainly something that I would invite you to submit those comments as a part of the NAB process as well, please. But I will as well take those forward after having been here tonight to address with our engineering team.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Absolutely.
Jeff, just a couple of other quick questions. I don't want to add on more about the traffic study, but I know there are always assumptions and there are always variables and things in 3 years can change. So just for what it's worth, I'd really appreciate someone just pressing the buttons one more time, just to make sure nothing's really changed. On that particular road that the public commenter made, do you know what the speed limit is there?
I don't. Karen, do you know the speed limit, or
I will get it.
25?
I'll get it. I think
25.
it's 25, yeah.
Wow. That's pretty slow, and yet it's
Yeah,
still a
that-
blind
that's-
corner.
that's essentially a
If it was like 40 or something, but 25 and it's still a blind corner, that tells you that's looking for trouble.
I live in a
Really?
subdivision where the posted
Yeah.
speed limit is 25 and
Yeah. I know.
and most people don't drive
You-
25.
I know sometimes it's really hard to get traffic calming done or
Right.
bumps, but yeah, that's another thing, or signage, flashing lights or something. Anyhow, if there's no lights on the road at all too, maybe good reflectors like they have on Mount Rose Highway, where you're going up and it's curvy there, but you get really strong reflection.
right.
Things like anything like that, because yeah, that seems to me to be a dangerous area.
Certainly.
What's that? Oh, I think that's all for you. I
Okay.
just want to add a couple more
Sure.
things for
Thank you
Karen.
very much.
Karen, I'm not a tree hugger, but I was glad to see that you're going to try to preserve as many trees as possible. Reno needs as many trees as we can keep. So thank you for that. My question is, in terms of irrigation, who, after the irrigation is put in, who maintains that and carries the cost of maintenance?
That would be the homeowners association.
The
Or the
homeowners
owner,
association. Okay.
Yeah, the applicant, the owner of the property.
Okay, and would that be same for the walls as well? They're beautiful walls, but if they're, I've seen them, others in the city that have deteriorated pretty quickly with the weather that they get coming in from the west.
Was your question, is that the same for the walls as well?
Yeah,
Like
would it be the homeowners association that would have to maintain the walls as well?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I think, well, let me, yes.
And my final question is, I'm sure that this has been covered, but what kind of public outreach have you done regarding this with the people that are, I know it's 750 feet is the notification that goes out, but let's face it, when you're dealing with traffic, the implications of that go well beyond 750 feet from anything. So what kind of outreach has been done to the public?
Well, there's, so as part of this, the whole Santerre Quilisi tentative map, they do have like a standard way to review projects when they get submitted that we can submit this through as well. And I know many of the residents have been working, usually Chris Baker from our firm is here with these projects. I know many of them have his cell phone and certainly be willing to talk through any issues.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
May I comment on one thing that you just asked, Gary? The noticing requirements, as you point out, 750 feet doesn't get you very far. We have a minimum number of people that have to be noticed for any application. However, in this particular case, because the parcels, actually one of the parcels extends, it's a very linear parcel, goes way up and around the curve, kind of. So there are people that are noticed on this that are nowhere near, because it's 750 feet from the boundaries of the parcels, right? So one of the main parcels kind of wraps up and around and heads towards Boomtown. So there are people being noticed about this that are substantially beyond the actual project area.
Okay, do we have any other questioners?
Seeing none, Mr. Chair. And just to reiterate, this is set to go to Planning Commission November 1st, 2023. So you'll want to make sure to get those public comments into them prior to then. Perfect. We'll be moving on to item B2, update discussion and possible recommendations on the Ward 5 community project.
All right. Hello, everyone. Jana Moyer, Community Liaison for the record. We're going to do a brief recap of kind of where we've been, where we are now, and hopefully identify some projects to get moving on here. So, yes.
Just for the benefit of some of the folks who are sitting in to listen, could you give it like a quick 1 minute update so
Yeah.
they know what we're doing?
That's exactly what I was worried about. Exactly what I'm planning to do. So, perfect. Thank you, Gary. This NAB was allocated $5,000. I am tired. From Councilmember Taylor's discretionary funds to put together a community project of their choosing. So in May was when we began this process. We started sort of with the phases of outreach and empathizing. The members were sort of tasked with checking in with their friends, family members, people that they know in their communities, to find out what are the needs, what are the issues that we are seeing across Ward 5. And then in June, we discussed some of those issues, brought those up to vote. July, we didn't have a meeting because we went to the baseball game instead. And then in August, had further discussion of issues and selected substance abuse, addiction, and overdose. And the reason why I think that was chosen, and I'll let you all correct me if I'm off topic here, but there were a lot of issues brought forth: homelessness, perceptions of people feeling unsafe downtown, a lot of things that maybe affected one specific neighborhood, but less so others. And I think and the issue of substance misuse and addiction, including overdose, was something that the members felt really impacted all areas of the ward, whether it's very suburban, urban, downtown. It was something that kind of cut across and was intertwined with issues of violence, homelessness, and all of the other things that we saw as problems. The members sort of identified this as something that affected really broadly across the ward. And so that's why I think that issue was chosen. At our last meeting, we had Ann Elizabeth Northen from Join Together Northern Nevada come and present. She's the executive director there for that 501c3 nonprofit. They work with a lot of other organizations in the community. They have a lot of community partners, including the school district, Big Brothers Big Sisters. They work with just a ton of people to both prevent and also treat people suffering with addiction and substance misuse issues. Ann Elizabeth brought up, that we do have really high rates of overdose. Some of these issues that we're seeing were aggravated by the pandemic. And again, looking at the maps, we did see there were maybe higher rates of overdose in downtown, but this was something that, again, affected all across the ward. And she mentioned some of the current initiatives that they have in place that they're working on to provide both prevention and treatment. A couple of those were nalox boxes, so placing boxes that contain naloxone throughout the community. They do trainings to make sure that people know how to use naloxone, or also known as Narcan, to help when people are overdosing. They have an initiative partnering with Uber Health to provide transportation, because they see that as one of the biggest barriers, that people who are wanting to get to treatment appointments often don't have transportation to make it there. And that can be a barrier that really causes people not to receive the treatment that they need. And she sort of identified those two as projects that could really use funding and support. And so I know included in your packet, we had some comments from Gary, along with some of the articles that he referenced that helped inform his decision, or maybe not decision, but his thinking across this, some of the recommendations that she made. And so the goal for today will be for you all to sort of ideate at this point. What ideas do you have? Do you want to move forward with some of the recommendations from Ann Elizabeth? Do you want to look at some other nonprofits? If you'd like me to invite anyone else to present, happy to do that. I know you're all ready for some action here and want to get some things moving. But I think, we are in the phase of the project where it would be great to brainstorm some solutions and things that you would like to put in place. And then I also just wanted to say, I think whatever you decide to put the money in towards, we can look at extending this. The project doesn't have to be defined by the $5,000, likely donation to a nonprofit. You could look at partnering with a nonprofit, and someone like GTNN that works with lots of other nonprofits provides many opportunities for ongoing collaboration. So excited to hear the ideas that you all have, and that's about all I have for now.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. Bryce, you want to start? Any ideas?
I don't know what kind of ideas you're looking for. It seems like we're kind of moving towards this. And reading through all these, it seems like I'd say we should try it. I don't know if you said with the 5,000, I don't know if we just give them the money or if it's more like a keep track, like what happens in 6 months or a year, like how much do they use it? How much does it get spent? And then that's maybe the 5,000's our limit or whatever for now, I guess. And then we kind of just keep track of that. You don't have to give the whole 5,000 to then this organization, do we?
You would not have to give the whole 5,000. I do think there was a pretty high demand. When I spoke with Anna Elizabeth about this project or this program, I believe that she thought 5,000 would be a really good sort of stopgap, because what they're doing right now is they're looking for more sustainable funding because the grant that they had sort of ran out. And so she was hoping that 5,000 could get them, I think, between 2 and 3 months of transportation for really everyone that they've been serving. And I do think that she, I believe this was in Gary's comments as well, was happy to try to provide as much reporting on how that's being used as possible. I did want to mention, just looking at their website, they've got ongoing events and things that, you all as a NAB could volunteer for, partner with, and I'd be happy to invite Anna Elizabeth back to present more details on the program if you'd like. Or someone else from another nonprofit, if that's the direction you'd like to give me.
Well, I have a question for you. With respect to the Narcan boxes, that to me sounds like a pretty good investment. I think the transportation issue would get rather expensive rather quickly, whereas that 5,000 could purchase a lot of Narcan boxes. I'm just thinking out loud. And I think that would be useful right away, because we're probably having those issues as we speak with the recent fentanyl bombardment all over the country. Did she mention, I apologize, I wasn't at the presentation last month, what that would cost to?
I don't recall exactly the amount that they were spending on that. I know that her priority, and when we asked her, what would you do with $5,000 right now? She seemed to think that the transportation program was higher impact, in that it really does help people who otherwise, it's a huge barrier when transportation is not available. So I believe that was her thoughts there.
Thank you. Gary?
You may not know what is in the boxes. Is it just it's a box that somebody can get the pen out of?
Yeah, it's the Narcan.
So
the
the money would be spent on the actual, not a box per se, but on something that could be used to stop an overdose.
I think that the money is actually spent probably on both, like the infrastructure. She said they were trying to put those around. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be happy to get more details from her on exactly what that
Yeah,
was, but I just remember she brought that up.
Yeah, Jeff, the only reason I mention that is that one of the earliest outreaches we did was to the Downtown Arena Partnership. That's what brought it to mind for me was those EpiPens, because they had come to the montage and made very forceful presentation about how that had saved 6 lives just in a couple of months. And then I thought, well, that might be something we could help to fund, as you said. It turns out that every single one of them is donated by like Renown or other health things totally for free. I don't know if that's true, but for these in general, but there's a lot of gift giving from health organizations. They don't beat their chest about it, but they're out there helping. So that's why I kind of went in a different direction personally. The other thing that struck me about the transportation, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you had a chance to read the articles, but she also in conversation had a lot of just individual comments about people. If they're at the point where they won't actually go and continue to go and get treatment, you've got a better chance of getting somebody help that can become a contributing member of society than getting it earlier in the stage. And Bryce, to your point, she pointed out to me that she can tool this down in terms of data to different stages in that process. As she mentioned, sometimes getting people who've been forced by the courts either go to jail or get in a program. You know, you twist their arm, that you can nail it down to those, or people that are in the middle of a program, or they've got all kind of ways to fine tune this to help us feel that we have the things that we want to support as directly as we can. And she's willing to do that. In terms of the math, I don't know what's a good average for an Uber trip? $20 with tip?
It depends
So
on the
anyway,
distance.
I just got 5,000 divided by $20 is 250 trips. I think she said the last couple of months, her average for the last 3 months of the program when it ran out was 175. So it won't go that as far as you think. And if the word gets out that the program's back in operation again, I would think there'd be more people that might be interested in availing themselves of that. The drivers are also, you know, there's very, very strong HIPAA laws about privacy, and some of the folks in this are nervous about what they're doing. You know, they're being pulled into the light for the first time, maybe. Well, the drivers are specially vetted for something like that. It's not just any old driver that's called up. So she can give us feedback on how well the program's working or if it needs to be fine-tuned. I don't know that it means all the money would have to go in the bank account at one time, but it doesn't provide that much more than, you know, a normal month, really, of the quantity they had before. I was absolutely blown away by the graph she showed with spots for overdoses. And it was so condensed. It must have been like 6 layers deep with dots in downtown. And that's a huge concern for me because there's so much fentanyl that's going around now. That one is such a tough one to head. This one, if people are on the way, by golly, if they can get them there, and many of them have to go in order to have they can't just go and get a bottle from the pharmacy and, you know, pop the pills themselves. That kind of defeats the purpose, right? They actually have to go somewhere, check in, have some counseling, then they get the dose. So it's quite a lot of regular travel. And there's a lot of recidivism now from programs like that. And the data is beginning to show a lot of it is just plain lack of transportation. So anyway, I just thought they have a real need right now because there's nothing being done about that. And people are probably dropping out as we speak. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
Just wondering is it drug and alcohol, or is it just specifically drugs that this is for treatment for? I just was wondering, like, if they're driving someone to an AA meeting every day, and that's, you know, I kind of feel like if that's something you want to do, you're going to find a meeting wherever, whatnot. So I just
her examples were mostly on
grocery store.
drug dependent patients, because she was saying that it's a great shame because they cannot self-medicate. That's why they have to go there. That was her big example anyway, for the most part. But yes, I'm sure there's some alcohol involved.
So it's mostly for people that are getting cleaned up and they're in a program and they need to go to this meeting so they can talk to their therapist or whatnot, get that prescription of something that is helping.
Or
and
maintenance,
progress.
methadone or.
Yes. And
Carol Crane, there used to be a taxi service that was supported by the city. Was that used or even considered, or that's still going on rather than just using Uber?
I can definitely check in with Anne Elizabeth. So this program is run straight through Join Together Northern Nevada. It's not supported by the city in any way. But I can check in with her on whether or not they've looked into options with other companies like taxis. I know this one specifically because the drivers are HIPAA trained, so they have that layer of maintaining patient privacy. They're not going to go out and talk to Abby about, oh, did you know that I drove Jana to an appointment yesterday? So I do think that is one of the reasons they've partnered with Uber, because they have that program with especially trained drivers.
Okay, thanks.
Just one final thing. I think that, Jana, you mentioned this and it hadn't even occurred to me, is if we're interested in this being something that is ongoing, there's nothing to say we as a group can't challenge other organizations to match. Say, we're doing this, this is why, and make a pitch to them, you know, with Anne Elizabeth or whomever, something like that. I mean, Downtown Arena Partnership certainly has an invested interest in having more people so they don't have to save their lives on the street. It's a shock to them to have to do that. So I would certainly go to Neil Majardin and pitch this if we went in this direction. RTC, I don't know about. I'm just, you know, just brainstorming here as I'm sitting here now. So we can do something maybe that can have a longer life than just the $5,000 we've been granted to offer.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Gary. I was going to mention, and I just noticed that Carly left, but when she had spoken in previous meetings about the project that they did through the county leadership program, I know one of the reasons they felt like it was so successful was they were able to get matching grant funds. Didn't she mention that before?
she
They
did.
got matching funds. Yeah. So I absolutely think that that is something that you could pursue.
Well, perhaps we could bring the representative back and maybe just fine tune our concerns and maybe let her know that this is what we're considering. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like you guys to meet her in person as well. I'd like to meet her in person, I think, too. And I'm narrowing down some things that I would like to narrow it down to. And to Bryce's point, I think it's good to have, she's open to accountability. We just need to define it for her. So what is it we would like to see you track?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're moving forward with this, so I just would like to see like, okay, we did this number of rides, the average, you know, it's $25, and just so the money's not wasted. And I mean, if it's going to something good, then let's work towards that and make it happen. But
Maybe, Jenna, we could ask of her some historical data on how many rides cost, how many people stayed in the programs that would normally have dropped out. She gave us the articles, which is very, very helpful, but maybe we can, I don't know, there should be a narrow it down to Ward 5 for that, but maybe she can give us some information.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to ask her to provide historical data and maybe some projections as well. So am I hearing that you would like me to invite her to the November NAB?
Please.
Awesome.
is this Ward 5 specific or is this all of Reno, right?
Ward 5.
Yeah, so the program, I believe, you know, is this entire area, but I think she could look at, we could ask her to look at, like Gary said, how she can break down data and focus on service in this area. We can
Well,
ask her.
it's
about
hard
that.
to say, well, we only want to help people in Ward 5 and everybody else, whatever. But you can't really do that. But I just was wondering if are we trying to focus on our area or is it just anybody that's in Reno?
My understanding, it was limited to Ward 5, and I think you're going to find there's a lot of, well, if we should find out where she transports from, the point of origin. I bet you there's a lot downtown. We have a lot of halfway houses downtown, operated very well, and I would be shocked if they aren't a lot of the customers for transportation services.
Well, I'd assume that most of these people are either, going downtown, they're from downtown, or they're going to St. Mary's or Renown or one of these places, one of the hospitals. And so, I mean, those shouldn't be super expensive trips, I wouldn't think. I mean, I use Uber occasionally and so yeah, I guess to narrow it down, if she could answer some of those or.
Absolutely. I'll ask her to maybe see if she can break down the data that way. I would just also like to point out that it is common for council members to make donations to nonprofit organizations, just like the ones that you highlighted that Councilmember Taylor has on the agenda for tomorrow. And generally, when they make those donations of their discretionary funds, there is no stipulation of you need to focus services in this area of the ward, right? They are supporting their council member that represents a ward, but they make decisions for the entire city. And so I think, you know, I cannot imagine that she would say, I only want these services in my ward. So I think that we can absolutely ask for the data breakdown, but there's no stipulation on the funds that they need to serve a particular area of the city. But if you'd like to have a focus there, we can ask her to have that breakdown.
I mean, because Ward 5 won't even be downtown come January.
Well, that
So-
is,
so-
come November post-election.
Okay, but the new ward is at Washington Street, which we saw that in the presentation, so. So I don't think it should be, you know, I don't want to say it's only these people, it's for the city, I mean, so.
And I'm gonna, one thing I would like to add, I think it also gives you guys leverage when it comes to the bigger picture of if she can provide the data, like this is how many are from county or Sparks or whatever ward that you guys can go as a group and be like, look how many of your residents were assisting. Just a thought.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Next meeting's chairperson. You nominate, Gary, you nominate Bryce, is that what you said?
I do very strongly.
And I second the nomination. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
resounding aye.
Okay. We good, Bryce? Okay. All right, got that. So. Item C, Board Commission Committee Members Reports and or announcements. Do we have any announcements?
Seeing none.
Okay. How about item D, future agenda items?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to, I think the 4151 Abbey and you mentioning, and that started, that was one of my agenda items. I still am a little concerned about the Title 18 process that's coming up. I think there's meetings going on right now without direct public input. There are stakeholders and we'll get there eventually, but I'm still unclear of the path that there is for the public to have direct input into changes to that code. So I'd just like to reemphasize that one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mhm. Okay, is there any public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one in-person closing public comment. Ken Becker?
Yes, thank you. Ken Becker, 1306 Canyon Creek Road, off Robb Drive. There's Canyon Creek Park right across from Grace Church, and I'm adjacent to Canyon Creek Park just up on the hill. And then the next street over is Ambassador, which is rather a through street. And if you can display the pictures I put down here, I've spoken to this before, but on Ambassador, there's a crossing of an urban trail right by Bankside there. And our neighborhood used to be part of Ward 1, and then in the last redistricting, we got put into Ward 5. Just before we got moved into that, why they put in, not this picture, but the other picture here, if you can, I'll move it here. They put in this traffic calming device here, and this is right where the urban trail crosses. And in snow, those get totally covered, and this doesn't really slow the traffic down. They just weave through it. And the city has to come out and replace those posts at whatever cost every so often. Whereas just up Ambassador, about a block, you've got this traffic calming device, what we used to call a traffic hump, that works very well, low maintenance. I think it's less problem for the snow plows, and I'd just like to see that get fixed. And hopefully this little tag neighborhood that I'm in doesn't get thrown back on with a ward on the other side of the freeway again, because that was really inconvenient when that happened. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then if you are on Zoom and would like to provide closing public comment, please raise your hand. And give it a second. And seeing no one at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do I have an motion for
Well,
adjournment?
any of our other audience, if you'd like to make a comment, you can. I think you just could, which you already did, I guess, but.
Mr. Chair, can
Is
we
it-
address any of the public commenters in this? Can't do that. Okay.
The gentleman would like to speak.
Just real briefly, again, for the record, Chester Burton. We feel very strongly about this. And I would hope that the advisory group would look at this as a future agenda item because I think it's vitally important. If the ball doesn't get rolling somewhere, it's never going to happen. And these things keep proliferating. And so if we don't address it, it's just going to get worse. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll second that, Gary Cecil.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.
Oh.